Welcome aboard Just Jets with your captain, Matt O'Leary. Buckle up and enjoy the ride.
Hey, what's going on? I'm Matt O'Leary back with episode number 29 of Just Jets. Hope you're doing well. Excited to get into this one and a few things before we get it started. So, if you're interested, check out the Patreon, patreon.com/Matt O'Leary NY. We are dropping exclusive content over there, whether it's the content creation course, whether it is Jets podcast, videos, Q&As, articles, a whole bunch of stuff going on over there. So definitely check that out if you're interested. Also wanted to let you know that 20% off manscaped.com using promo code JETS20. You can get yourself something nice like the Lawnmower 3.0 with its skin-safe technology. It makes shaving a breeze. I absolutely love using it, and I will only use the Lawnmower 3.0 because it works, and it works really well. So check it out, promo code JETS20. That being said, let's jump into today's show. We got a lot to get to today. Last week, we did a positive outlook. So what would it take for the Jets to have a positive outlook, meaning 9, 10 plus wins? Today, we're going to do negative. So I firmly believe this is a team that's going to win 6, 7, 8 games this year. So I'm talking like 5-11 or worse. What's going to happen in order for that to happen? And the first thing that comes to mind is injuries, which, let's face it, the New York Jets have had a ton of injuries so far. Their wide receiver depth is not good at all. Jeff Smith got hurt again recently over the weekend. It was a lot. There's been a ton of injuries at seemingly the cornerback position, wide receiver, which is, two really important positions. Luckily, the offensive line has stayed relatively healthy. Just for me, it's a little bit nerve-wracking when you see just how much these injuries have played a role already, and the season hasn't started yet. So if the injuries continue and you are running out Dante Moncrief, or on top of that, Chris Hogan as your starting outside receivers with Mims and Perryman on the shelf, not great. Definitely not great for Sam Darnold. Le'Veon Bell also is a key factor in this, so if he doesn't prove that he's effective, if his year is similar to last year, then the Jets are in trouble. I think that, they're going to try to rely on him. I know that Gore has been the better running back in camp. I don't know how much I buy Frank Gore over a 17-week season in order to, prove that he is the guy who's going to get the most reps. I don't know if I could say that I believe Frank Gore is going to be the one who gets all the touches or a majority of the touches. I know that Gore and Gase have a connection from their days back in Miami, but I just don't see how you could possibly expect a 37-year-old running back to carry the workload like that at this point in his career. So if for whatever reason Le'Veon Bell isn't as good as what he once was, then perhaps that could be an option for a reason for a regression. Then the offensive line is another key one. If the offensive line doesn't improve, then the Jets are in pretty big trouble, because last year they were bottom 2 offensive line in the league. I would say they were the worst. You can make the case that maybe they're at bottom 2 or 3 in the league. If they don't improve and aren't a top, 20 to 25 unit, then they're in trouble. If they're a bottom 3 unit again, that's not going to help Sam Darnold's progression, which that is the biggest X factor to me. How much is Sam Darnold able to take that step forward in his development? If he can, or if he stays the same, then the Jets are going to regress record-wise and be, a 5-win team, which obviously isn't good long-term for the New York Jets. On top of that, on the defensive side of the ball, we know that you lost Jamal Adams. You know that you replaced him with Bradley McDougald. If there's a significant downgrade there, that could be an issue. The lack of pass rush could come into play. Yes, you got 8 sacks out of Jordan Jenkins last year. Would I bet on that happening again? Probably not. So if the pass rush isn't developed, that could be an issue. If Quinnen Williams doesn't take that next step and become someone who could rely on for 6, 7, 8 sacks a year, then that's an issue. If the cornerbacks regress, that would be huge in a bad way. Brian Poole was really, really good for this team last year. If he returns to form or worse, that's a problem. If Bless Austin can't stay on the field and is not good, that's an issue. If Pierre Desir can't stay on the field and looks like he did last year versus 2018, that's an issue. And that's just a formula for how the defense can go from, 10th last year to 18th or 20th. If they're, in the 20s, then that's really not good, because I don't think their offense is going to be good enough to win them football games on its own. With a bad defense, they need to have this good defense in order to be competitive. And the last one for me, in what can make a season negative, is Gase. If he does not grow, if he is still stubborn in his play calling, if he doesn't utilize Le'Veon to what we think he can, if he doesn't use two tight end sets, if he doesn't maximize the talent on the offensive side of the ball, which I know in the scrimmage yesterday it didn't really look like the offense was all that productive, then it looks like maybe you can have an issue on your hands with the offense. So if Adam Gase is bad again, then maybe you can see a regression. I don't think this team is going to be one that's going to bottom out, but if nothing goes right for this team, like last week we were talking about how much has to go right for them to be a 9-10 plus win team. If all these things go wrong that we just listed out, then I don't see how they are a 6, 7, 8 win team with the schedule that they have. And that's operating, of course, under the assumption that this stuff doesn't go well. It could. I don't necessarily buy into, that this is a 5-win team, but at the end of the day, if we look back in January and their record was 5-11, then I'm guessing a lot of these things is what's going to happen along the way, whether it's injuries, whether it's the defense just taking a step back, offensive line being bad, Le'Veon Bell not being the same player. It's all things that worry me going into this season, and the Jets, unfortunately, don't have the depth yet. They probably will in a few years after Joe Douglas continues to draft, but right now, this team doesn't have a ton of great depth, and with the amount of injuries they've had so far in the preseason and training camp, then who knows what to expect for the regular season, and that could very well be an issue, and that is absolutely how you go 5-11. And if you stink in the division again, that is also how you go 5-11. And if you can't win on the road, like Adam Gase has proved that he hasn't really been able to do as a head coach, that's a recipe to be a bad team. So I am not betting on that happening. I don't think that they're going to be a 4-12 team, 5-11, anything like that. But if that were the case in January when we're looking back on the season, I'm going to assume that a majority of the reason why that they were the way that they were was because things on this list began to happen. So obviously we're not rooting for that, but looking at what could be a negative outlook season, all these things happening would be brutal for the New York Jets. All right, let's get into the voicemails. Actually, before we get into the voicemails, while I get this set up, I wanted to let you guys know about a podcast that I found out about. It's a really good listen. It's a fantasy football podcast, so if you're interested in it, you definitely should check it out. It's How Seymour Sees It. So definitely worthwhile to look at. It's on Spotify. They're really knowledgeable on the fantasy football season. I was actually listening to it before I did my draft this past week, so I just wanted to share that with you guys and just get into it on fantasy football, because I'm a big fantasy guy. I don't know if you guys are, so if you are, definitely worthwhile to check it out. So hopefully you enjoyed that show. Let's get into the voicemails now. This first one, I didn't get a name, so we're going to go anonymous. Wants to talk about the screen pass.
Yes. Great show, and the other dudes that get along. I'm not going to say their names right now because I can't pick them up. I'm in west of D.C., but I'm originally from New York. Big time Jets fan from Joe Namath days. I got to see the guarantee. Anyway, the screen pass. This year, the Jets have a yardage and scoring record on the screen pass. All right. Great show. Keep it up.
Love it. Love that energy, and heard myself in the background there, which is always cool. I would enjoy getting some more action in the screen pass. Le'Veon Bell out of the backfield catching the ball is what you want to see. I want to see a lot of the ball in Le'Veon's hands this year. I don't trust the Jets wide receiving core enough right now. I think it needs work. So I'm going to say, anything to help out the offense, which would be nice, easy completions for Sam Darnold and getting the ball in your best playmaker's hand. It makes sense. I completely understand why you want to see more of that. I'm with you. I think it makes total sense. So thank you so much for the question. Next up is Jimmy from Columbus. Wants to talk about the 2021 offseason.
Hey, Matt. It's Jimmy out in Columbus. I just want to look ahead and talk about the 2021 offseason, believe it or not. There's obviously quite a few good or top-tier free agents scheduled to be available, and, of course, we have 2 first-round picks, although those although those are going to be a little bit dicey given the fact that a few conferences won't be playing this college football season.
True.
Personally, I'm tired of our lack of edge presence, that guy who can consistently get 10-plus sacks. Probably haven't had one since John Abraham. But our corners are also below average, to put it nicely, and we've had one good number one wide receiver season in the last 10 years, that being obviously Brandon Marshall with Ryan Fitzpatrick in 2015. That being said, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on the offseason. I think we're scheduled to have over $40 million in cap space next year, even before we make any cuts. Do you think we continue the trend of rebuilding the O-line and spend on a Brandon Scherf, who got tagged this year by Washington? Or if Shaq Barrett repeats or has a similar season like he had last year with 19.5 sacks, do we try and sign him? Now kind of shifting to the draft, I'd be willing to bet that we at least use our Seattle first-rounder on an offensive lineman like a Wyatt Davis out of Ohio State.
I would love that.
But the other top picks, do we go edge rusher or corner like a Patrick Surtain Jr.? Thanks, man. Love the show. Keep it up, and go Jets.
Thank you so much for the question. Lots to unpack here. I think that definitely edge has to be a position that you look to address, whether it be in free agency or the draft, if not both, because there's a good chance that Jordan Jenkins isn't back next year. And, I mean, on the other side, who you're going to have? Terrell Basham, maybe, like, as your other outside linebacker. So it's definitely a position of need. And I wouldn't be opposed to taking it in the first round. I really wouldn't. I think that would make sense for sure. And as far as free agency goes, if Yannick Ngakoue hits the market, maybe you go after a guy like him. Shaq Barrett, he'd have to repeat or have another, double-digit sack season for me to want to bite in. But, yeah, they have a ton of cap space, so I think they can compete. I personally would rather go after Joe Thuney for the offensive line over Brandon Scherf if he doesn't get a long-term deal. He's obviously on the franchise tag like Scherf. I'm a big fan of Joe Thuney's game. He's a little bit younger than Scherf as well. But I agree. I think they continue to look and build up the offensive line. I think that they continue to look to add to the wide receiver room. I think that you might be in the market for a running back, depending on what Le'Veon Bell does this year. Tight end, you're probably good. Quarterback, I'm going to assume you're good. Defensive side of the ball, I think you're fine on the defensive line. Edge is definitely a need. Corner could potentially be a need. And I think you're okay at safety. So those are the positions that I would look to attack in both free agency and the draft. To me, the order doesn't really matter a whole lot, or which they decide to do and what. Those are just the main positions that I think are necessary for the New York Jets. So hopefully that answers your question, Jimmy. Anthony from Ronkonkoma called in. I'm not going to play his question. He called me and then called me right back because he realized that I answered it last week because he wanted to ask about the tight ends. But thank you for calling in, Anthony, and definitely call back if you think of another question. Really appreciate you reaching out, of course. So Luke from Rockland wants to talk about the 2021 draft. So we'll stick on that 2021 trend for right now. Let's hear from Luke.
Hey, Matt. It's Luke from Rockland. I'm just wondering, I know it might be too early right now, but in the future, what do you think is the most important position for our first-round draft pick for 2021? Thanks. Let's go, Jets.
Yeah, really appreciate that question. I think that there's a lot of different ways you can go, and it depends on what you do in free agency. But wide receiver, offensive line, edge, corner. Those seem like the four positions that seem likely at that rate. I think that, and again, it all depends on what you do in free agency. If you go out and sign Juju and add another, decent wide receiver, or if you're trusting Denzel Mims to take a next step, then maybe you don't have to go wide receiver in the first round. And maybe you can go edge and offensive line. Or if you sign Joe Thuney, maybe you don't have to worry about the offensive line in round one and you go wide receiver and edge. Or if, who knows, maybe Bless Austin isn't the guy we think he is and you need to draft a corner in the first round. But I really think those are the four positions I'm keying in on right now as we sit today. Again, it really depends on, one, how the season plays out, and two, what you do in free agency. But just based on the long-term positions, like, you're probably fine at left tackle. You might need a long-term right tackle. I definitely think that you need long-term solutions at guard. Maybe Cameron Clark is one of those guys, but it wouldn't hurt to add a body on the interior offensive line as well. Edge, you definitely need a ton of help at. Corner you might need help at, but other than that, I really think you're okay at other positions. So I'm really looking for those four main ones to be in the mix in the first round. I know I wasn't a proponent of drafting a wide receiver this round because I thought the Jets desperately needed an offensive lineman. But with 2 picks in the first round, if you tell for next year, if you tell me you go wide receiver like a Jamar Chase and offensive lineman at the back half, I could get on board with that. I really can. I think the Jets have to go offense heavy. I understand that they have needs on the defensive side of the ball as well, but the offense was ignored for so long that I lean a little bit more towards the offense before I worry about edge and corner. Still definitely a need. Still have to address it, but it kind of depends on what you do in free agency, but I'm leaning more towards the offense right now, and that's what I want to improve more so. So thank you so much for the question. Next up is Aaron from Illinois, and he wants to talk wide receiver.
Hi, this is Aaron, and I'm from Illinois. So today, I'm getting really concerned. So okay, I know I'm all over the place. I'm not really quite sure what I'm trying to say, but I got a question. So do you think the Jets should bring Dez Bryant in, like just to sign him? Because I'm honestly surprised that the Jets haven't signed him yet, because despite he's played all the Jets issue a wide receiver, because the Jets just drafted Denzel Mims, and he's been out with a hamstring injury for like 3 weeks. Who knows how long he can be out? He can be out for like 2 to maybe 3 months. It really depends.
3 months for a hamstring.
Hamstring injuries.
I'd be surprised.
Are pretty difficult. They're hard to figure out. And then you see your top receiver that you signed this offseason, Brashard Perriman, didn't play with a knee. So I guess yesterday I read his article, and Sam Darnold. I know it's just practice, but I'm certainly a little concerned because Sam Darnold did not look very good against the second-team defense of the Jets. He went 10 for 16. I'm not quite sure what yards. Didn't say in the article. He had no touchdowns, but he had 1 interception. Chris Hogan didn't look good. I'm going off from the article. Chris Hogan didn't look good. The new receiver I just got. Chris Herndon didn't look good. Sam Darnold didn't look good. He missed too many wide open receivers. I know it's just practice. I know the LVC is 2 weeks away, but I'm just getting a little concerned. I'm getting kind of concerned here because we don't really have any wide receivers, and the offensive line today wasn't too good. Darnold got sacked 4 times. I don't know. Tell me what you think about the whole Dez Bryant thing. I think the Jets should go out and get him, somebody that the Jets should sign, or if not, trade for Juju Smith-Schuster. So yeah, let me know what you think of that.
Yeah, a lot here. First of all, with Dez Bryant, he hasn't played in the NFL since 2017. I'm really not about signing Dez Bryant, Antonio Brown, or Josh Gordon. I'm really all good with those 3 guys. Those names come up a lot, but they haven't had a big portion in the NFL in a while now. Dez since 2017. Josh Gordon, when was the last time Josh Gordon really played? He was with the Patriots a few years ago, but I mean, the guy misses a ton of time. I don't know if I'm all about giving guys second chances, but at this point, in 2019, he played 11 games and put up 426 yards. I don't know. That's Gordon, by the way. And who's the other one? Antonio Brown. He played 1 game in the league last year, right? With the Patriots, yeah, he had 4 catches for 56 yards. I don't know. He's a nutcase, man. I don't want any part of those 3 guys. Taylor Gabriel, fine. Trading for Juju. Okay, if you can tell me you could trade for him and extend him, yes, I would probably do that. I would. I understand the concern. I really can't get too bent out of shape from, August practices. We'll see. We'll see in a few weeks. I mean, less than 2 weeks until week 1. There's no preseason games, so I mean these guys are probably going to be a little bit rusty. I don't think Sam's going to be the only one. I don't think every offense is going to come out of the gate flying high. It's going to be probably low-scoring games early on in the year before these teams really get underway because, like I said, there's no preseason. I would love it if Sam Darnold was tearing it up every single practice, but I don't think that's realistic yet at this point. Thank you for the question, Aaron. Next up is Nick from Georgia. Wants to talk Kalen Ballage.
Hey, what's going on, Matt? This is Nick from Georgia, a.k.a. Sam Darnold.
Love that, by the way.
You're doing your franchise on Madden. But anyway, I had a question for you. At the time of me calling, it is currently 7:53 p.m., and it is the 27th of August. And I was scrolling through Google when I noticed the New York Jets picked up Kalen Ballage from Miami. I just wanted to get your thoughts on this. I don't know if you're going to do a video or not, so if you've already done one, I apologize. But, I wanted to get your thoughts. To me, the Jets got a loaded running back room, so I really don't feel like we need him. So I don't see why we picked him up, to be honest. Just let me know what you're thinking about that, man. Love your content, man. You're going to do great things. I can see it.
Appreciate that.
Stay safe and go Jets.
Thank you so much for the kind words there. So Kalen Ballage, before I started recording this, he did not pass his physical. So the trade did not go through at this point. He could still be a Jet if the Dolphins expect to waive him and the Jets could pick him up. Supposedly LaMichael Pirines getting an MRI. Just added to a list of guys who are banged up right now. I don't really like Kalen Ballage. I think he's really overrated. He had one good game in college where he put up I think it was 8 total touchdowns, 7 rushing and 1 receiving. He had a monster game. And then in Miami, he was okay in his rookie year in a very, very small sample size. And then last year, he was bad. He averaged under 2 yards a carry. He was really, really bad last year. Sign Bilal Powell. He's sitting there for free. You don't have to give up any picks. You could sign him for a cheap deal. Sign him for the veterans minimum. Get him in here. He's effective. He still is, even at his age, at 31 years old. I think that would make a ton more sense than signing a guy like Kalen Ballage, who is banged up and can't pass physical right now. So that's the route that I would go. They also need another receiver. Offense needs help. It definitely needs help. Common theme. So thank you so much for the question, Nick. Mario from Long Beach is up next. He wants to talk wide receiver and if the Jets should use the tight ends a little bit more.
Hey, Matt, this is Mario, second-time caller from Long Beach, New York. I was calling in reference to the problem we're having right now with the wide receivers. Obviously, with the injuries, and we weren't even that strong, we didn't have injuries. I was thinking that since we're so strong at the tight end position, why not go with a double tight end? We can start the 2 tight ends we have, the 2 top tight ends, and that'll give a little extra blocking. And Herndon already is almost like a wide receiver anyway. I think the other guy's Griffin. He's plenty good. That might not be a bad idea. Give me your thoughts on that. Bye.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for the question, Mario. I agree with you 100%. The Jets wide receiving room isn't great. It really isn't right now, especially with the injuries. That doesn't help. Yes, I trust Jamison Crowder, but it's Crowder and a bunch of nobodies right now, essentially, until Perryman comes back, until Mims comes back. But the Jets have a really good receiving tight end in Chris Herndon. He put up 500 receiving yards in his rookie year. He essentially gave you no production in the first 5 games. So in the last 11 weeks, he had 450 receiving yards or something crazy like that. I think he's good. I think if he plays all 16 games, he could easily have 700 receiving yards this year. And Griffin was fine last year as a replacement. I'm cool with using both those guys to help mitigate your lack of offense at the wide receiver position. So I 100% agree with you, Mario. Last one's going to be Travis from Ohio. Let's hear from Travis.
Hey, Matt! Travis from Ohio. Hey, buddy. Yannick Ngakoue just got traded to, who was it? The Vikings. They gave up a second next year and a fifth in 2022. That could be a fourth if he goes to the Pro Bowl, and a third if he gets to the Pro Bowl and then they go to the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, my question is, did they give up too much? And would you have done the same exact deal for the same exact picks if it were the Jets and Joe Douglas? Second thing isn't a question, just want to say, being in Ohio, I saw a lot of Pittsburgh and Cleveland games. So I saw Dante Moncrief a lot last year, unfortunately. He's not going to make the team. I know they just signed him for depth, but I don't see him as wide receiver 4 or 5 or 6, 7. He's not going to be on the team. He sucks.
You're not wrong, though.
You know it, though. You're the man. Love you. F. Jamal Adams. Go Jets. Stay healthy. Bye.
Thank you so much, Travis. Really appreciate the question there. I'm kind of with you on Moncrief. He was rough last year. He had like 4 drops in the first game of the year. He made it 5 games, I believe, into Pittsburgh's 2-year deal that they gave him. Rough. I would have done that trade for Yannick Ngakoue, because essentially like it could be a second and a third. I think that's fine for a guy who's going to give you at worst 8 sacks. The one thing that scares me is you couldn't sign him to an extension right now. It would be a gamble, so I understand why the Jets didn't do it. And where he got traded to, obviously the Vikings are a team that they consider themselves a contender. So I could understand maybe why the Jets weren't in the mix. If I could have gotten a, hey, I'll sign with you kind of thing, then I would have made that deal, I think, for sure. He's someone who could make an absolute difference when on the field. And it's a position the Jets have struggled with for a really, really long time. So, yeah, that's my take on it. I definitely would have done it. It stinks, but maybe you sign him in free agency next year. That'd be really nice. But that's going to do it for me this week. I know it's a little bit of a quicker episode, but just wanted to give you some reasons why I think, what could go wrong for the New York Jets and how they could have a bad record, and answer those questions. So really appreciate it. Thank you so much for tuning in as always. Once again, I'm Matt O'Leary, and I'll talk to you next time.